Welcome back, football fans. Another GTL extra video. This one looking at Arsenal's strongest 11. They are the team who will be kicking off the 22-23 season first, playing Crystal Palace Friday. And I want to go through the Arsenal team. We know they've brought in some good players in this transfer window, and I'm bringing you a football expert from across the pond in the US. He is a good friend of mine. He goes by the name Dan. I think he's a little bit delusional. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to bring him in right now.
Thanks for having me on. I caught that last little bit about delusion. I'm pretty sure within the last few weeks I got a text after West Ham signed a certain player that you guys were winning the league. So I don't know where delusion lies in your mind. So maybe you could take me through that.
Well, of course, the player you're talking about is Scamacca, the big 6'5" Italian, great striker. But we're not here to talk about West Ham. We're here to talk about Arsenal. And they signed a very good striker in Gabriel Jesus. Are you happy with him?
He's come in and he's hit the ground running. I had my doubts at first, but this guy just creates chaos everywhere.
Yeah, so this channel is relatively new. Shout out to everyone who is watching. Make sure, give us a like, subscribe. We've done a few videos already. I don't know if you got to see us predicting the Premier League. We also did a video on transfers as well. And Arsenal were quite busy. There's quite a few good signings. We spoke about Jesus just now. I thought Zinchenko's another good one. Overall, are you happy that Arsenal have strengthened in all of the positions that were required?
There's still more work to do. But the one thing I will say is they brought in players that have experience in the Premier League and have an experience of winning. When it comes to Gabriel Jesus, 4 times Prem winner, all this and that. Zinchenko, they just have the mentality to take Arsenal further. You saw Xhaka, who was talking about at the end of the season as we were falling apart, that part of the problem was the mentality. So you need to bring in these players. They also brought this guy from Portugal who won the league there and could be a very good addition. Because it seems like with Arsenal, one big player gets injured, we crumble.
It seems like Arsenal are building something now, though. I've been a bit of an Arteta critic since he's come in, to say the least. I've always called Arsenal out for their weak mentality. However, right now, you're starting to see a little bit of a shift. They're bringing in these champion players who have a different kind of approach. And I think Arteta, from the bits I've seen from the Amazon Prime documentary as well, I don't know if you've seen all of that, the All or Nothing, I was quite impressed with the way he conducts himself in the locker room. Of course, that's only a glimpse, and some people are saying he's playing up to the cameras a little bit. We'll never know. But regardless of that, I've been impressed. Pre-season, they've looked probably one of the strongest teams out of a lot of the other teams. They completely thrashed Sevilla. They're coming into the Premier League season looking quite hot. I've never really put Arsenal very high in any of my predictions ever. But for a change, this year I've gone with third. Seeing as you are delusional, Dan, are you expecting second or first? You've got to go a few extra than me. You usually do.
With Arsenal, you have to be realistic.
Oh, here he goes. I've not heard this down before.
It comes from a lot of experience of, watching Arsenal. And I'll say, we have the first 11 to get top 4. We have the first 11. And with Arteta's tactics, I'd say usually it goes well when the whole 11 is fit. But when you have an injury to someone like Thomas Partey, or someone gets a red card, or something goes wrong, Arsenal start to crumble. So with the talent now, and if we continue to bring in some extra quality players to back up our 11, I think we'll push for 3rd or 4th.
Yeah. And talking about the 11, that's why we're here today. So let's get into Arsenal's strongest 11. So here we are. I've got a helping hand from buildlineup.com. So all we have to do is fill in the names for the positions. The best place to start before the goalkeeper is the formation. What formation should Arsenal be lining up against Crystal Palace first game of the season with?
Well, what Arteta's always wanted to do was the 4-3-3. So I think he'll try to go with that. And it seems like in the past, he hasn't had the quality to get the 4-3-3 that he wanted.
Okay, so you're going with a 4-3-3. So let's stick with that then. So I'll put the number 9 up top. Tell me if you like it like this. What, one holding?
Yeah, he'll put Thomas Partey holding, and then he'll put Xhaka to the left and Odegaard to the right.
Oh, steady on there. We're not going into the positions. We're not going into the players just yet. You jump in the gun, something like that. Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the goalkeeper. So we've got the formation 4-3-3. You said this is what Arteta would do, but is this what you would do? Are you happy with the 4-3-3? Because you've got the two differences. I mean, I would do the same for West Ham. You know what Moyes is going to do, but you've also got an idea in your head what formation you would play. Are you happy that 4-3-3 brings the best out of this group of players?
It depends who's fit, because I mean, Tamayasu out wide against Zaha, I'd be okay with. If we're playing a back four with Ben White out wide, he tends to get exposed on the line, and one player you don't want to get exposed by is Zaha. So,
and I guess like you said, it does depend which team you're playing on how you're going to set up. But let's just look at this as this is your strongest 11. So all your players are fit. You want to put your best team out. And with the goalkeeper, we know Bernd Leno looks like he's on his way out to Fulham. You've got Ramsdale as the number one for a large majority last season. Is there anyone else troubling Ramsdale?
We've got this new American boy, Matt Turner, but he seems to be untested, so he's not getting the start.
Okay, so it's safe to say that Ramsdale is going to be the number one.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. That's quite an easy one. I'll be in agreement there. So let's go to left back.
That's a tough one. That is probably the toughest decision you have to make for the team, because Tierney, when fit, unbelievable. Great going forward, pretty solid at defending. His crosses are usually on point. Zinchenko now coming in and has more fitness, I'd assume, than Tierney, who has been out for a few weeks. So when it comes down to it, I think Zinchenko is more reliable for the first game.
So when both are fit, though, Dan, does Zinchenko get in over Kieran Tierney? Because I don't want to quote you, but there's a few quotes I've got from you saying how Kieran Tierney is your favourite Arsenal player.
At that time, I rated him highly. He's a leader. I like to watch a leader on the pitch that gives it all, and I think Tierney does that. You looked at like a Europa League game when we were down. He just, took the lead and banged in a shot. Tierney's got that in him. He's got heart, and the only issue is he can't get consistent form because he always gets injured. So at least now we have the player in Zinchenko who is also quality. I mean, when you have someone like Tavares, the guy runs around like a headless chicken, he doesn't release the ball early enough, and his defending is somewhat poor. So it's good because he has a lot of raw talent. It's good he's going out, to get some experience at Marseille. I don't think he was ready yet. So I like the decision for Zinchenko.
Another thing to factor into this, though, does Zinchenko want to play left back? Because we know for Ukraine he plays CDM. He had a big discussion with Guardiola before he was leaving, and he was opting for the fact that he wants to play in the middle. That is his preferred position. Arsenal have signed him, and they're playing him left back. Is he going to be happy playing there?
We've seen him play in that position that you speak of for Ukraine, and he's done a very good job, captains them. So we like that leadership right there. And
I thought Yarmolenko was captain.
At times, you've seen Xhaka kind of play that inverted drop back into left back. So Zinchenko could play that. And Xhaka has been exposed doing that and giving away penalties, especially in that City game, which I think the ref was a little...
But you are confident that his best position is going to be the left back one? That's where you'd want to play him?
I don't think he's starting over Xhaka. I think Xhaka is one of our closest to world-class players.
And you're not going to play two defensive midfielders? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought Arsenal in the past have always played sort of Xhaka and Partey.
Yeah, so I think what they'll do is they'll have Partey protecting the back four, and then Xhaka will push forward as we attack, and then as we're defending, he'll kind of drop back and cover into that left space more defensively. Okay,
right, let's move on. So I'll accept your Zinchenko at left back. Let's move to the centre-back positions. Oh, there's quite a few to choose from. They've got, of course, Saliba coming back in from his loan. You've got one of the many Gabbies who played for Arsenal there. Great Brazilian player. You've got Ben White, big signing last year 50 odd million, big expensive player. Who's going to be knocking? Who's going to be pinning down the centre back position? And in your strongest team, when everyone's fit, who starts?
This is what I like to hear. You're struggling over to see who starts. You see, this is not what we had before. You know, you're not asking, does Pablo Mari start? Does Rob Holding start? Because that's a no. You know, they're not good enough.
Squillaci, he's one of my favourites. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, Squillaci. Or Koscielny throwing his jersey on the ground. All right, so Gabriel is going to start in the left side.
So is he your strongest centre-back, Gabriel?
I mean, he's a bit young and his discipline could be better, but he's got a lot of quality. And he gets you some goals going forward from set pieces. So I think he solidifies that position. The position of more question is that Ben White and Saliba role next to him. And I think since Ben White was such a big signing that he was pretty consistent last year, maybe he had 2 games where he gave away some issues and that led to goals. But if you look in the French league, Saliba did it as well in a few games. So I think both of them are pretty consistent overall, and it will come down to form. But
Wasn't Saliba in the Ligue 1 team of the season as well? I feel like he got some accolades in France.
He's got all the potential. Saliba's got all the potential, but I think he's going to have to take that position from Ben White, whether it comes with form.
So you'd still start Ben White over Saliba right now?
I think for the first game, yeah, because Saliba.
Not just the first game. I know I said that, but let's just think of it more your strongest team.
I haven't seen enough of Saliba. I'm not going to say I've watched every game that he played over.
Do you think White has maybe a little bit more Premier League experience? And he would be the one you'd go for.
Arteta, it seems like it takes time for players to go into that position. And you can't really tell so far because Tomiyasu's been out and he's been starting White wide. So maybe he goes for what's been consistent in preseason and just plays White wide. But I think that's really risky against Zaha, and he could get exposed. So
it's interesting because I think this is maybe the one position so far. And I think the main position where we're going to differ, I would be more on the side of Saliba. I know it's a bit of a risk. I think he's a bit of a beast. I think he's a bit of a beast, Saliba, and I would like to give him the confidence. And for me, I think he would just edge it against White. But listen, I'm going. This is your prediction. You're the Arsenal expert. This is your first 11. So we'll stick with White for now.
There's a lot of hype from the Arsenal fans around Saliba, but you have to understand Saliba is untested in the Prem. Not that I don't think he has all of the potential in the world, you know? He could become one of the best center backs in the league. Let's see who Arteta goes with.
Right back position. So, off the top of my head, just fill in the gaps if I miss anyone. We've got Tomiyasu and Bellerin. Is there anyone else?
Bellerin looks like his contract's gonna be terminated and he's off to Betis, taking his long.
I mean, I miss Bellerin. For me, he was a player I could really get behind at Arsenal. I loved his short throws he did, where he sort of started the throw from just on top of his head. I particularly liked how he was always trying to look after the environment. He's a bit of a character, Bellerin. I mean, you liked him as well at the time when he was playing.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good run, and then till it was over.
He's got a great fake front. He's been
more concerned for his modeling career than he was for his Arsenal career.
Okay, so
I think he just fell out of love with the club.
What's he going to do better in? Is he going to just go back to Betis?
He's going back to Betis, playing for much lower salary. I mean, hey, more power to him. You know, I don't think he's good enough to still play for Arsenal at that level above Tomiyasu.
And tell me a bit about Tomiyasu.
I think he's got immense quality. I mean, you look at some of his crossing, you look at his defending. He tends to slip every now and again, and I think he's still got some learning to do, but he's got a lot of potential there. He's solid. I remember some of the pundits were really giving him a hard time about what position does he play, and he showed them wrong, you know, last season.
Well, there was a lot of pundits as well. I don't know if it's more sort of the transfer people on Sky laughing at the fact that you signed Tomiyasu because he was offered out apparently to a host of Premier League clubs and nobody wanted him, quite frankly. I think Spurs were one of them. He was offered out to.
Yeah, he turned them down later on.
Well, we don't know. This is what I've heard through the grapevine, that he was offered out to these Premier League clubs. They didn't want him. He ended up at Arsenal. Arsenal wanted him. But I still think, if I'm honest, that it's actually turned out to be a good signing, because he seems like a good defensive player. And nowadays, fullbacks, I feel like they're more focused on actually attacking. But with Tomiyasu, he can actually defend.
Yeah, Arsenal need backs that cover, because
he's someone who can defend,
yeah.
which is important, I think, because it's the fundamentals of a defender ultimately. But nowadays with fullbacks, the focus seems to be all to be a bit like Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, if you're that good going forward, you can give a little bit up in the defense, but I can't say that for Bellerin. You know, he offered somewhat.
His crossing was terrible.
It didn't cover for his.
That crossing was poor.
I remember seeing him get turned inside out a few times.
Talking of right back quickly, I know you said about Tomiyasu slipping. It just instantly come to mind. Do you remember Jenkinson every time you played against Swansea?
Didn't he go to West Ham then?
Yeah, he did. I mean, he was better at West Ham for about a few games and then just turned to shit, to be honest. But with with Jenkinson, do you remember the days when you used to play when you used to play Swansea, and that Jefferson Montero used to turn him inside out every single time?
Yeah, he was electric. That's just like, I mean, we've gotten so much stronger defensively the last few seasons. I'll tell you, I was nervous every single time we get attacked before we got White, Gabriel, Tierney all like in there with Tomiyasu. I mean, it just looked like we could get scored on every time we were attacked. So that is one of the things from last season we improved on immensely. Didn't give away a goal from a corner until maybe the last 4 games of the season. So tactically, things are getting a lot better with Arteta and our new free kick coach. And then we just need to put more balls in the back of the net. We need to score more goals next season. That seems to be what we lacked when Abba stopped caring.
Right, let's move into the midfield. This position, who's up for grabs? Who can be playing here?
No, it's got to be Thomas Partey.
Thomas Partey, not Xhaka.
Xhaka is going to play a little bit more forward, or
what other options are there for this position? Is it Sammy Lokonga as well?
Yeah, I think that's where they'll go in the market and hopefully strengthen. But it seems like
so. If Partey's not there, who plays there? That's what I want to know. Because we don't even know if Partey. I'm not sure what's happening with Partey. As you know, I'm not going to go into it on this episode, but there is a lot of things happening off the pitch with a few allegations. I mean, if he's found guilty for that, he's not going to be playing football. So you probably should have a backup in mind. And who is that backup? Do you play Xhaka then and play someone else further forward?
I think that's what you have to do. I mean, Partey is like, but there's not many players that can do it like Partey.
Is he your most important midfielder, Thomas Partey?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think our season depends on Thomas Partey. I think he is that key of a player for us.
Okay, so that one's pinned down. You want Xhaka here as well?
Xhaka there. And then our other, I think our midfield is extremely important. You know, you've got Partey solidifying breaking up a lot of this play. Xhaka can pick a pass. And I mean, of course, Odegaard, his talent, his composure, his pressing, his vision to see the passes that no one else sees, similar to like an Ozil type, but that actually works quite a lot harder. I think Odegaard has a very high ceiling.
Is Odegaard, it's hard to say because Ozil played longer, but is he a better player for Arsenal than Ozil was? I'm not talking about the Real Madrid side of his career. I'm talking purely about at Arsenal.
That's going to take time. He hasn't had enough time. You can't tell.
Okay, but you're very encouraged by Odegaard, and I'm assuming he's going to be playing here, right?
He's got that high of a ceiling.
What other options do you have here? What about Emil Smith-Rowe?
Yeah, I think sadly Emil Smith-Rowe doesn't get into the first 11.
Because he come in with a lot of promise. He's a real good youngster. And I mean, personally, as much as I don't want to admit, having him as a young player coming in off the bench, what a position to be in. I mean, so many clubs would love that. For me, I like the fact that he's so direct and he takes a shot when he sees sight of goal, he takes a shot. Nowadays, you see so many players just tiptoeing it around and they overplay the ball. I feel with Emil Smith-Rowe, his directness is so important. You just don't see it in the modern day, especially from, to be fair, maybe youngsters, you see it a little bit more. But he plays without that fear. And it's a bit of a shame. I mean, if I'm Emil Smith-Rowe, would you be a bit disheartened with the fact that you're not starting? Is he going to get enough minutes as well? Is he going to be in January thinking, you know what, I'd like a move away from the Emirates?
He loves it. He loves it here.
He loves not playing.
He said he loves Arsenal, and
what about if he's not playing, Dan?
He said he could see himself staying at this club for the rest of his life. Those are his quotes. It is sad, but I think in games that he has been subbed on, I mean, his conversion rate has improved so much. It's something he's worked on with Arteta, and you can tell, because a lot of the times before he lacked that final third product, but now it's kicking in, and it's sad that he's had some injuries and whatnot, that he hasn't solidified that position. But also, you look at the ceiling of Martinelli, and I mean, Jesus, that guy has quite a bit of talent as well in his boots, but he needs to work on his product in the final third. But that connection, now they have Gabriel Jesus, which is a player that will run in behind. So it's a whole different dynamic. And I think that Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus is something to watch out for. You see that pass in behind against Sevilla that Gabriel Jesus finished from Martinelli. I think that they'll start with Martinelli off the bat. And Emile Smith-Rowe will get games. I mean, you look at Arsenal now have Europa League and all these other competitions that they'll probably get, pretty far in.
And what other options are there for that midfield position?
I mean, I don't think Emile Smith-Rowe.
What about the young Portuguese guy you bought? Where would he fit into this?
Yeah, so he's gonna. I'd say just as important as Partey is, Odegaard was last season, because he was our creative outlet. Odegaard just was like creating almost everything for us, and he just leads that press. But this guy Vieira, even
where does he fit into this system? What number?
Yeah, he's going to play in that 8 position.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to.
So he's another backup for that. Emile Smith-Rowe, another one in that position. So you've got.
I think Emile Smith-Rowe is going to be a Martinelli position. I think he's going to play him more wide. He didn't play him centrally that often.
Okay.
So I think that Vieira. I mean, it depends on the lineup how attacking Arteta wants to be. I don't think we'll see Odegaard and Vieira in at the same time. You never know, maybe, because the Vieira also can play this right winger.
Is he even ready though, Dan? I mean, Vieira, is he at the level to be playing at the Premier League?
He's got 14 assists last season, so I mean, he's got the talent. Like Odegaard,
which club?
I think he's just so technically gifted.
Which club? Which club did he get the assists?
Porto.
Oh, for Porto. Okay.
So he's just got that. I mean, some players, if you've played the game your whole life, you can see how just naturally talented they are and the way that they read the game. And he's got that. So I think maybe some of these players, it can take time for them to kick on, like Odegaard did a little bit, but I think he's got it.
Right, let's move to the front three, starting with, well, forget the numbers because they're a bit scrambled now, but the left wing position. Which options do we have for this one?
Yeah, so that's going to be Martinelli. He's going to start.
And who's competing with him?
Emile Smith-Rowe will come off the bench and hopefully get us some goals like he did last year.
I think Smith-Rowe's in the left wing, not the Odegaard role.
I think that's where he'll play him, and you could see how good he was, cutting inside and shooting far post.
For Martinelli to have a good season, Dan, I'm just looking to see what the other. What about Pepe? He's the other left winger, right?
Unfortunately, I don't think it's worked out for Pepe, and this is an area where they need to bring in another quality player. I mean, Pepe, I think
if they're both fit, Pepe, Martinelli, you always start Martinelli over him.
Yeah, Martinelli starts. Pepe's, you never know what you're going to get. Is he playing for YouTube, doing players in and out 3 times, or is he trying to score goals to get a save?
I mean, he does do that, doesn't he? He does he takes on a man, does a great bit of skill, and then he tries to go back then and do the same skill again. It's tiresome.
And
it reminds me a bit about how you play, actually. You've got a very similar style, YouTube style.
Thank you. I'll take that.
So for Martinelli, define a successful season for him.
10 goals. 6 to 8 assists. I mean, I think it'll be a progressive season. I think he's a step up. He's not world class yet. He's not Vinicius Jr. He's not Mbappe, but can he get there one day? I sure hope so.
Right, the number 9 position, the striker. You've got, well, there's no Lacazette anymore. There's no Aubameyang. but you've got Gabriel Jesus, the big signing, and Eddie Nketiah, the number 14, taking over from Thierry Henry. 14's a big number at Arsenal. I'm surprised they gave it to him. Can Eddie Nketiah challenge Jesus, or Jesus, he's not giving that position away? Because he's
Nah,
looked good in pre-season, Nketiah.
I think somehow some games they'll play together because they link up. Eddie will run at people.
So you say they'll play together. What will they do? Will they change formation? Will they put Eddie on the wing?
I think Eddie will sub on sometimes, and then they'll play together. And Eddie, they're both just so direct, Gabriel and Eddie, that they run at players. And whether it's a bit of skill you get past people or not, sometimes it could take deflections into the other player's path. And I think we'll see a bit of this, and both of them are foxes.
I mean, if you're trailing in a match, potentially. But this is more the starting 11, the strongest team.
Yeah.
I know what you're going to do. You're going to put Jesus here, right?
Yeah. If Eddie can get us 10 goals,
He's looked good, Jesus.
Subbing on as well, adding 10 goals to us, it's
10
great.
goals I think that's very good if he can do that.
Yeah. I mean,
in terms of goals, Jesus, what's a successful, what are you benchmarking? I've already said my opinion on how many goals he can get. How many goals do you think he can get?
I think he's got the ability to get 15 to 20 plus if he doesn't get injured. But it just worries me how direct of a player he is and how much he gets clattered into.
You think the style of play he has is very injury prone and is a worry for you?
It is. He's so direct and he's tricky and he gets fouled a lot. So let's see. Arsenal tend to have a history of players getting injured as they come to the club. Right. But if he can stay fit, I think he gets 15 to 20 goals.
Okay. Last position, right wing. I'm just trying to remember what.
How many goals did you see?
I mean, I went with a successful season for him is 20 plus.
Yeah.
If he's playing week in, week out, and if Arsenal are to reach Champions League football, he needs to be getting 20 goals plus, in my opinion. I think he's going to be someone who can get there. But it depends how much Arsenal share the goals amongst the top three. I mean, if he got, say, 15, but then Martinelli got 10, it wouldn't really matter, would it? I mean, that's still a good return. You need to judge. For me, you need to look at, if you've got an out-and-out striker who's scoring all the goals, then probably 20 goals plus he needs to be getting. But if you've got a front three or midfield who can chip in with goals, or a central defensive player who scores goals from corners, it's not as essential. But I look at your midfield, and as much as you're big on Odegaard, I don't look at him as a massive goal threat. I know he can chip in with the odd goal here and there, but he doesn't strike me as another team who they've got sort of a Bernardo Silva, a Phil Foden, or I know Foden's more on the wing, but say De Bruyne, or Chelsea with a Mason Mount.
I disagree. I think he's adding goals to his game, and you'll see that this season.
Okay, right wing.
One thing I will say that a lot of Arsenal fans probably won't like to hear is that going back to last season, about mid-season and maybe a little bit later on, we were having the discussion about who would finish in the top four. And I said that I thought Tottenham would finish above Arsenal because they have two world-class players that are going to get them over double-digit goals and assists in Kane and Son. And you were telling me, I think Arsenal will finish in the top four, and I just was hesitant because I didn't see where the goals would come from. This season, I think that the progression of Martinelli, the progression of Saka, both young players, if they can get 8 to 10 goals each, and Jesus can get 15 to 20, it'll help us get in the top four.
Right. This right wing position, I mean, I don't think anyone's taken it from the wonder kid in Saka, right?
Yeah. This guy is electric. I mean, he just makes it.
What other options do you have for right wing?
I think that's what they're working on. You saw they tried to go for Rafinha, but he only wanted one team to play for.
Yeah, so you're missing you're missing options off the bench.
Yeah, I'd say
you played Pepe there, right?
It seems like Pepe could be on the way out. I've heard rumors he's been offered to Newcastle, but I'm not sure I see that happening. Let's see if he can.
We can get your new signing, Marquinhos.
Yeah, the kid's still young. I think he'll play in the other competitions, but it'd be great if he could kick on and get some time in the Prem. But I think right winger is a position they're still looking at in the market, and I think they're still looking at a midfielder to cover for that Xhaka position.
What position does Marquinhos play in this team?
What is it?
If he was to come on, where would he play Marquinhos? I don't know much about him.
Yeah, he would play the kind of soccer role out wide.
Okay, so potentially you could be looking at a Martinelli, Jesus, Marquinhos, an all Brazilian attack. Maybe that extra chemistry might help you out in a few games.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see that yet. I don't think.
Okay.
I think he's still going to play third fiddle to whoever they bring in, and I hope they do.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I agree with you. Saka's the one you can't really replace. I think probably your best player. That's just my opinion. I think he's so influential in this team, and his pace and the way he can beat a man one-on-one. Not many players can do that. Unfortunately, his finishing ability does let him down at times. You look at sort of Jared Bowen, he's actually got that. He is pretty clinical in front of goal. Saka doesn't have that yet, but Saka has...
How many goals did Bowen get last season?
Man. I mean, if you want to do the comparison, Dan, between Saka and Bowen,
how many goals did Bowen get last season?
I mean, I don't want to bring it up and embarrass you on here. I'll show you in another one. If you bring up Saka and Bowen and their statistics
Saka got double
last
digits.
season,
Bowen
has better stats than Saka. But that doesn't mean anything. Just not read too much into the stats. I think Saka's a great player. I put him on a very level kill. Saka, I think, better at sort of attacking a man. Bowen, a better finisher. But let's leave it there. This is
who has a higher ceiling. Who has a higher ceiling out of those two?
My bias will say Bowen, but you'll say Saka. So let's move on and save this for another episode. I'm going to wrap it up here. This is our strongest 11 for Arsenal. Before I let you go, Dan, I want to ask you, where does this strongest team for Arsenal, if you can keep these guys fit, where can you finish in the league table?
Third or fourth.
I need one answer for you, Dan.
If we stay fit, third.
So you're going with third. So you're copying JG. You've watched the episode prior. He's went for third. You've gone for third. I went with third as well. Yeah. I think your biggest threat is going to be Tottenham and not Chelsea as well.
I agree. I think Chelsea are in a transition phase, which we've seen at Arsenal, which we've seen at hopefully still United. So hopefully they'll not be come back to, haunt us. So we'll see. I mean, I think it's Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Tottenham fighting for the top four. And then obviously, I mean, Chelsea with the backing that they have, I mean, they could come in and sign, another $100 million worth of players and be competing right there. But it could take some time for them to all get up to par. And so, I mean, I think Arsenal have a good shot this season in finishing in the top four.
And West Ham, of course, I think they're going to be in and around that sort of position as well.
Which one?
Pushing on the top six, looking to sign Onana soon. But yeah, we'll save that for another episode. So there we have it. Let's wrap it up there. This is me and Dan's strongest 11 for Arsenal. Are you excited for the season, Dan?
I couldn't be more excited for Friday.
Are you beating Crystal Palace?
I have to. All of this had a good preseason this year. They have to kick on. And if you beat Palace 3-1, 3-0, you make a statement. Even 2-1, I'd take.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll be big favourites, but I'm kind of hoping that we see like a draw or something, just to settle down some of the Arsenal fans. I think they're getting a little bit too big for their boots, but I can understand why they are, because you do have a very good team, and I do like your new starting 11. But let's end it there. This has been another GTL Extra video. How was your experience on GTL Extra, Dan? Did you have a good time?
Great time. Thanks for having me.
No worries. We'll get you on again soon. Make sure, guys, if you haven't already, hit the like button on the video, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you for more Strongest 11 teams before the start of the season.
Come on, you Gunners!